Okay, so I'm gonna get started. Can someone volunteer to watch the comments in the chat box for me?
I can.
Perfect, thank you. Feel free to just unmute yourself then when someone comments. But of course, guys, if you have any questions throughout this presentation, please feel free to unmute yourself, make the comments. I like to keep these sessions interactive as possible to make sure it's applicable for you guys. To start off, I want to thank you for taking this time to be on this call. We're going to be talking about finding seller leads, how to convert them, and other tips and tricks that I've used in the past to secure these leads. So to start, I want to give you guys some information about myself and why I'm teaching this class today. So my mission in the real estate industry and in life is to inspire others to live life by design, using the vehicle of real estate. For those who don't know, I'm also a coach with MAPS. I know I have a few of my clients on here, which is awesome. Thanks for coming on. And it's throughout my real estate, throughout my entire career, I've transformed from an individual to running a team and achieved accolades, but more importantly, recognize that in real estate, you can either grow and become a better version of yourself, or you can use it as a life by design. So that's what I like to incorporate in all my trainings. This is my real estate team. We sell mainly in York Region and Simcoe. And for those who are on this call that aren't in the Ignite class, we have an office in Newmarket and Aurora, and we mainly sell, like I said, in York Region and Simcoe. If there's time at the end of this class, I'll get into more of my story if there's any questions. And throughout this presentation, what you're going to recognize is our team mainly focuses on using social media as our main prospecting way, as well as we like to leverage everything we can do to provide value to clients versus sell. So you're going to see that throughout this presentation. Before we get into this, is there anything pressing that anyone wants to make sure that we touch in this presentation? Maybe a question you have about sellers, maybe a gap that you're experiencing with working with sellers. And if there's no questions right now, that's okay. I just encourage you to throw them in the chat box. That way, as they come up, maybe something that's happened in the last couple of months with you, just let me know and we can address it. Okay, so to get started, great news is in Ontario here, we're in a seller's real estate market. And that's why this is such a hot topic. And I'm so excited to chat with you guys about it today. Essentially, we're in a seller's market because we have an inventory issue. When we have low supply and high demand, prices rise, which is what we've seen over the last couple of years, and more specifically during the COVID pandemic with the high demand of moving. On top of that, we're seeing extremely low interest rates, and we have a lot of immigration coming into Canada. So that's why working with sellers tends to be a priority that people focus on, because you can leverage, you can get a lot more done, and it's more predictable with home selling. Before I move on, I want to let you guys know what it means to be in a seller's market statistically. So the average, to have a balanced market from buyers and sellers, the average is 3 months inventory, which means that we have 3 months inventory for buyers. Right now in York Region, specifically, I'm just going to pull that stat, in Simcoe, we're only sitting at a 0.3 of a month inventory. So we're a ways away of having a balanced market. And it's very predictable that going into the rest of 2022, we will be sitting in a seller's market.
Sorry, Michelle, where are you getting that statistic from? Because I would love to leverage that information, but just to be able to have it on hand.
Of course. I actually can't see who's speaking.
Oh, it's Danielle, sorry.
Yeah, so if you use Matrix, you can find it in the stats, depending on what board you're on. So you did have an option on Treb to use Matrix. That's the best place you can find it. Same with on the Barry board. If you don't have access to Matrix, there should be an option in this Toronto real estate board. You're just gonna have to search it. And you can track that on a month-to-month basis.
Okay, awesome, thank you.
You're welcome. So to be a seller's agent, it starts with mindset, then applying the skill, and then going into action. Movement is what's needed in order to be successful. It's not just verbally saying something or learning something. So I like to pull this into play because when it comes to your guys' Ignite class, you're taught all these different things you can do. I want to remind you to make sure that you're actually applying them. And then just a quick story. When I started back in 2017, Ignite, I took very, very seriously. There actually was a moment when I lost my voice during Ignite, and I showed up to class and I was so scared that I couldn't talk, couldn't report my numbers. And that's how seriously I took it, writing my numbers on napkins, doing everything I could. At that time, and you can ask anyone who was in my Ignite class, I had very little money. I just got into the real estate market. I had nothing. I wasn't in the best place mentally, but I took it very, very seriously. And that's what skyrocketed. Well, it helped my career in the beginning. From there, I went into Bold, which is probably a program you guys have heard about. It's similar to Ignite. It's a bit more accountability. And at that time, I didn't even have the money to buy Bold, but I got a scholarship through the office. After I had some instance with the broker of record that I didn't have the funds to support my real estate career. So it's just a bit of an interesting dynamic that I wanted to share with you guys because we all start somewhere. So to start this presentation, I want to show you guys a video. And for those who have been on my courses before, you likely have seen this video, but it might hit you a different way this time.
Most people only pay attention to the final product of a successful entrepreneur. They say things like, I can never be like them, or they got lucky. What most don't see is what they've overcome. All the struggles, the daily rejections, the heartaches, the betrayals, the rumors, the criticism, the empty bank account, and all those lonely nights while trying to make their vision a reality. You see, the only difference between the one who quits and the one who doesn't is that they showed up every day. They worked hard every day. They hustled every day. They learned from a proven mentor every day. They improved every day. They did all this even though they felt like quitting every day. And eventually, they became who they are today.
Any ahas from that video? Or any thoughts?
I've seen that video before, and I try and remind myself on a daily basis that you have to show up every day. If you want anything in life, if you want to look great, you have to work out every day. If you want to be successful, you have to show up every single day. Whether you like it or not, you don't feel good, I think there's no excuses.
Yeah.
That's my personal mindset, but sometimes it might be too extreme, but that's what I take from it.
No, I love that. It's all about the compound effect. Just a little bit every single day, it will come later. And now this applies to all of real estate, but even working with sellers, sometimes it's a difficult area to get into if you've been working with buyers for a long time. But if you just put in the work every single day, eventually your results will come. So thank you for sharing that. With these three notes that I put on this slide here, mindset, skill, action, they're in this order for a reason. And before we get into this content with the skill, what you're going to learn to be able to go into action, you need to remember that if you're about to do something, you need to be in the right mindset. If you're not in the right mindset, you will not get the outcome you're looking for. And so if you feel like you're constantly banging your head at the wall, I want you to think, what are you missing? Is it mindset? Is it skill? Is it action? Are you having trouble converting buyers? Are you just in a negative mind frame that you can't get yourself up in the morning? Like, what is it? Because it is a formula to get the results that you're looking for. As a listing agent, you need to make sure that you're very confident. And the reason being is, as a listing agent, you're getting the clients to pay you for a service versus as a buyer's agent, of course, you're getting paid by the seller whose house you find for them. And so getting over self-limiting beliefs is so important. I find some people don't even address this before they get into the industry, and that's why they get into a lot of struggles. And so when I say self-limiting beliefs, it's things like maybe you think that you're too young or too old. Maybe you feel that you're not experienced because of something, and they're all drunk monkeys. These are just thoughts that you have imposed on yourself that are not necessarily true. My advice for you on top of addressing that is, for those who are just starting in the career, don't become overly comfortable with working with buyers. Listings are huge leverage. More than ever right now, you're going to get leads off listings. You're going to be able to leverage your time better. They tend to net you the most amount of money. And don't mistake being busy for being productive. Those are two different words. I think a lot of us say, oh, we're really busy. Oh, we're showing 15 buyers and we're very excited, but that doesn't necessarily equate to making the most amount of money or hitting your goals. So this is what draws people to want to work with sellers more so, because it's a more predictable outcome once you got the contract. So today, of course, we're going to talk again, like you guys have on a day-to-day basis, how most successful real estate agents grow your business and you run your business. More specifically, we're talking about lead generation for sellers as one of the things that you're doing to grow your business. But make sure that you're always applying all of these different things that you guys are learning about, and make sure from the beginning, you're not just working in your business, but you're working on it. There's a big difference. And so working on it means that you're actually looking at the whole picture. You're looking at your profit and loss. You're looking at where your return on investment is. If you just day to day keep working in it, you will eventually burn out. And you need to, as soon as you can, recognize this, see what can be more predictable for your end result. Okay, so let's get into this. In Ignite, we talk about where we can find seller leads. So the most popular areas we find seller leads is your database. And now your database could mean the database you've created, your sphere of influence, your social media pages. Where you're going to get your best return on investment is your database, because these people already know, like, and trust you. So you're doing things such as support calls. You're calling your database and saying, hey, just wanted to check in. How are you? Is there anything I can do to support you? When you're providing value to your people, they're in turn going to ask you how you are, and you can talk about the real estate industry and turn that conversation into, do you know anyone looking to buy or sell? I've got big goals this year. Another really popular way is open houses. Of course, with COVID right now, it's not really a traditional way at this moment. That being said, it doesn't stop you from doing videos and posting them on social media. It doesn't stop you from doing TikToks. Any way you can showcase a house. The reason why open houses is huge for seller leads is because when people can walk into a home, they're typically looking to interview an agent to sell their house, at least before COVID. More so, people can see your skills and how you sell when you're showcasing a home. On the right-hand side, there's your daily 410, I believe it says there, 10-4, which is for those in Ignite right now, you're making your 10 contacts a day, you're doing 10 notes and so on and so forth. And you're also reaching out to your referral sources. So this could be mortgage agents, real estate lawyer, anyone you know for referrals. What I've done here is taken it to the next step. First, I want to show you where our team's gotten our seller leads, so I can be very transparent with you in the way that I'm teaching you, and then give you some tips and tricks. Are you guys okay with that?
Very
Awesome.
okay.
Perfect. Okay. So I just pulled, and this is being very transparent. This is the last about 20 listings that our team has taken. And you can see on the left-hand side that 87% has come from past clients and network. Now, so you guys have a definition, to us, that means social media database and in-person interactions. Now, that is our stats. We are predominantly organic social media, which we'll get into. 7% came from door knocking, 3% came from sign calls, another 3% came from open houses. Something I want to stress on here when looking at these stats is the door knocking and the open houses were transactions that came from 3 years ago. So I did the open houses 3 years ago. I did the door knocking 4 years ago. What I find with these traditional methods is they are awesome if you can keep up with it, and your results will likely pay off long term. If you want seller leads now, I find that you're more able to get them now if you go through your past clients and your network. So on social media, online, and there are a few traditional methods in here, these are my recommendations for finding sellers. Number one would be on Facebook. So finding community or interest groups of your interest. As an example, let's say you're looking for a seller in Barrie, Ontario, and you pull up the neighborhood Holly, start following that page. Sometimes you'll see people talk about how they want to sell their house, looking for a real estate agent. You can also throw out a message in these groups that says, you're doing everything you can for your client. They have a budget of this. Can anyone help us with a slow inventory? I've got responses before, and I've double-ended or sold exclusively to buyers and sellers this way. Interest groups are, let's say you love to run, you should join running groups in your area. And now don't come at this from like a sales strategy. Like I wouldn't go in there and I'm a real estate agent. I would develop the connections, build the relationships, and then at some point they're going to ask you what you do, and that's how you're going to find your sellers. Once one person knows about you in a raving fan group of all interest, everyone else is going to know about you. Another place to find sellers is on Marketplace on Facebook. So for those who don't know what this is, it's basically a buy and sell spot on Facebook. I've used this for different ways to find sellers and buyers for that matter. If you just look at who's selling furniture, there's a good chance they're about to move or they just moved. Maybe they have to buy. I can't tell you. So I'm addicted to Marketplace. I used to buy tons of stuff off there, and I would go to the person's door, pick up a picture, and they'd say, oh yeah, we're about to sell our house. And I've gotten leads that way. So think strategically, what would the mind of someone who's about to sell their house do? Another way is through on Marketplace is for sale by owners, or people who want to sell their home privately. They'll also post about the house they want to sell. So keep an eye out for that. I typically every night before I go to bed just take a quick look, and while I'm on my phone. And this is an avenue you can explore. You can also use Kijiji. Go on the MLS listing, check the expires and cancellations. From time to time, I've been looking for inventory for my buyers, and then I found a listing that would work really well. I went to the door, or I called the past agent in some cases. And where I got the seller was I went to the door, and that's how I found the listing. You do have to be careful with this. Check on MLS to make sure the expiry of the listing is up before you go to the door, but it is an option you can look at. Your Facebook database. So what I mean by this is, so real estate's a game, it's a contact sport. And the way that I have taught my team most recently is you're an investigator. So go on Facebook, who's moving, who's got kids that were just born, who's going through a divorce, who's getting married. There's a good chance that, all your answers are right there. You just have to dig in and think like a game of who's going to buy and sell. And if you see that someone, their teenager just came home from school and maybe they're complaining about the size of their house, then maybe that's a great person to reach out to and ask them how they're doing and interview them, not come across it from a sales perspective. Interview them. How are you? How are you coping? Is there anything I can do to support you? Oh, well, this house is a little bit too small. Oh, well, let's jump on a phone call. I actually have some great options that I thought of you for. So coming at it from giving value. You can also, of course, do door knocking to find sellers. You can send out what we call golden letters, which could be a course on itself. Just search it on command, and you probably find some golden letters, which is just addressing to sellers if they want to sell. Mojo Dialer, preferred vendors, which is going back to referral partners. Shopping, which this is, you might find this strange, but even the last couple listings that we have in the pipeline this year, I went into Sleep Country and I was looking for a mattress, and I just decided to interview the salesperson, asking them how they are, and they told me they want to sell their house. So you come from place of value, and it's a contact sport. So whoever you can get in front of right now, get in front of them and interview them. When I say interview them, we're going to get into this a little bit further, but it's asking them what I call the Ford. So about their family, their occupation, their recreation, what they like to do, and their dreams. People love to talk. So if you just, ask them, what do you like to do around here? How are you? How's everything during COVID? They will tell you, and your answers will be right there with finding sellers. Drive around, number 9. There's sometimes for sale by owner signs. There's coming soon signs. Just watch what's going on in your neighborhoods if that's where you're targeting. And another great way to find sellers that people often forget is people who are requesting to buy or lease. More specifically, lease. There's a good chance sometimes when you get lease leads that they have a house to sell before they go in and lease something. We've come across this a couple times with our lease listings. Now, I would say the percentage of this is a lot lower, but it doesn't hurt to ask that question when you're qualifying a lease. Any questions on this? Was there any of these strategies that you guys have never thought about, or anything that someone's going to apply?
I never thought about the marketplace, Michelle, but I think I'm going to definitely look into that.
Yeah. Awesome.
Michelle, we have one more question in the chat. Oh, never mind. It's been answered. What does the R stand for in Ford again? Recreation.
Yes. We're going to get into this a little bit further. I recommend the Ford acronym when you're going in for listing presentations, of course, too. But the way that I like to look at finding deals in general is not the traditional, are you looking to sell your house? It's, hey, how are you? How can I support you? How's your family? When you show interest in them, they're going to want to talk to you. And if you've done a good job providing that mind share that you're a real estate agent, if it's through social media or through your community, they will naturally ask you about real estate, and they will come to you versus you having to go to them.
Bill,
Yep.
I was writing, I missed what you said about driving around.
Yep. So sometimes you'll see for sale by owner signs.
Okay.
I come across them every so often. So driving around to see what is on people's lawns, essentially.
Michelle?
Yep.
Sometimes seeing those garbage bins, people getting ready to renovate, it might be a good little trigger too, to maybe drop off a letter or have a conversation with them.
Love that. Thank you, Corey. I love that. Yeah. So kind of going back to being an investigator, like never take your mind off of where's the sellers at. They're in front of you. Everyone knows someone who is going to sell their house. It's just a matter of tapping into that conversation and getting them to know, like, and trust you. So they're going to tell you who that person is. Yeah, I love that. Even if you see someone do a recent renovation, from time to time, I'll go for a walk and I'll see people taking pictures of the house. And sometimes they're appraisers who are about to give a value to sell the house too. Okay, so, oh, yeah. Did anyone have any other comments or questions?
Yeah, sorry, 1 second. Couldn't hear you. 1 second, please. Sorry, what was that?
Tammy, I'm just going to mute you. Okay. Sounds good. So we're going to move along to qualifying these sellers. So once you've found a seller, they've identified that they're going to move, you want to make sure you connect with them. So the ways you can connect with sellers is asking them the typical who, what, where, when, why questions, and how. You'll ask them who, because you want to get details to add them to your database. The most important thing, of course, is collecting that information so you can follow up with them, even if they don't want to sell right now. And this kind of comes back to the way that Ignite teaches it, is asking those forward questions. So who are you? Who's in your family? What do you do for a living? Throughout these questions, I'm going to take this a step further and teach you guys that your goal is not only to figure out how motivated they are, but what their pain and pleasure is. This is something that a lot of people don't think about. When you are working with a buyer or seller, you need to understand what's pulling them to or pushing them to sell. Once you understand that, like their motivation essentially, then you can use that as leverage. And I know that sounds bad, but you can use it from a consultant standpoint to make sure they're moving to the next step. So to give you an example, you might find out that someone's thinking about selling because they want to be in a certain school district because they prefer their kids to go to that school. But then you find out that they're not that motivated because the husband's job and this and that. You want to continue to dig and ask those questions to figure out what the pain and pleasure is. You might find out that driving the kids to school is actually more of a pain, and that's why they're looking to move. There's going to be always different reasons. So going back to this, you want to figure out what are they looking for? What do you want to do? Their plans. Where do you want to buy? Where is your home located? Determining the motivation. Why are you moving? When would you like to do this? And how do you plan on doing this? Now, what I like to do is, as soon as I find out they want to sell, I do dig into this a little bit, but more specifically, I book the appointment because sometimes clients don't know what they don't know, and they don't know what they want. And you can sometimes falsely qualify someone because they said something that maybe isn't correct. So I always try and get them in person, and I treat it as another contact that might give me a referral down the line, or they are going to sell their house. Once you ask them these questions and you get a good idea of who they are, and to put this into perspective in today's times, this is probably over the phone at this point. You then want to categorize them to if they're an A seller, a B seller, or a C seller. Now, what this means is, again, their motivation to do something, because you have to be careful of your time and you want to make sure you're putting priority on the A sellers. So an A seller is someone able, ready, and willing to do business in 0 to 14 days. This kind of seller, you're going to want to follow up with them daily to secure an appointment. The B sellers are someone who's willing, able, and ready in 15 to 60 days. You're likely going to want to follow up with these people every 2 to 3 days. And your C is someone who's going to do business in 61 plus days. You'll probably put them in your database and follow up with them monthly. I always recommend, if you come across someone who is very motivated on the 0 to 14 days, I would constantly call them day to day, not to annoy them, but to make sure that you do secure that lead. And what I mean by this is there's other agents out there that they could get in conversation with. So you want to do everything you can to book that appointment. Now, when you're following up with these sellers, and this is another course essentially, but I want to bring this up because I don't want you guys to think that means like, hey, do you want to sell now? Hey, do you want to sell now? It's following up to gain the mind share that you're their local real estate agent. And what I mean by this is when I say, and I know some of you guys have heard this example because you've been in other trainings with me, but when I say pop, what do you think of? So maybe throw it in the chat. When I say pop, what comes to your mind? So someone says Coke, population, balloon or popping, bubbles popping, sugar, diabetes. So when I say pop, what comes to your mind? Coke, soft drinks, Coke. Let's do one more. Dad, could be association with pop. So thank you guys for who's commented. Popcorn, champagne, I love that. Now we're getting creative. You guys have heard the other responses. So when you ask that question, actually the most common answer that we typically get is Coke. And the reasoning is they've done such a great job with their branding that when we think of pop, we think Coke. As a real estate agent, that's what you want to do in everyone's mind. When someone says real estate agent, they think your name. So when you create that mind share, they are going to remember you when the neighbor says they want to sell their house, when they decide they want to sell their house. So your job's always to create that mind share through the follow-up. Any questions before we move along? Okay, so I'm going to come back to this with categorizing your seller leads and role play. I want to get through a few more things that's in here that's going to help you with that. When you're converting your leads, you've now qualified them. You want to make sure you're asking for the appointment, also asking for a referral, and asking for them to reciprocate the connection you've made. What this means is every single time you have an opportunity to go on an appointment and you have an opportunity to talk with someone, you want to ask for a referral so you can see if you can get more business. And you want to make sure that they know that you actually know that they feel connection the way that you feel connection. So that's getting them to reciprocate the connection. And we're actually going to get into this with rapport. I've thrown this in here, which was not in your content. It's types of closings. This is ways that I've used, and it's proven in the Shift book. So page 102 for those of you who have the Shift book by Gary Keller of how to ask for the appointment. I'm going to go through a few of these just so you can see it. With these closings, you always follow, or I recommend you always follow with giving two options. So the hard close, let's meet. Does Monday or Tuesday at 4 o'clock work for you? The soft close, I've really enjoyed chatting with you. Would you like to get together to discuss this further? Does Tuesday or Thursday at 2 o'clock work for you? The direct close, can we meet today? 4 o'clock. The indirect close, would it be okay if I got you some information to look over so we can meet and discuss? Does 2 or 4 o'clock work for you? Do you guys see the difference between these? I see some heads nodding. Perfect. Let's do one more. The assumptive close. It sounds like we should meet. I'm available most times this week. What works best for you? So you're going to use these different types of closings based on the personality of your potential prospects and also to what you're comfortable with. For those who have a high D personality, which on the disc, for those who haven't looked into it, it's the disc. You can Google it and you'll find out what personality you have. A high D is typically someone who just wants to cut to the chase instead of ready, set, fire. They're always firing. They might go straight to the hard close. Let's meet. But for someone with a personality who likes to cross their I's, dot their T's, really think about things, really, swallow what the information they've been given, that hard close might come off too salesy to them. They might more appreciate the indirect close. Would it be okay if I got you some more information? So you're asking for the appointment, but you're also providing a bit more value before you ask for the closing. Once you've qualified your sellers and you're about to go on your appointments, you have to make sure you pre-qualify them. So this is a step that you take even before your appointment after you've identified that they're a potential seller. The reason we pre-qualify sellers is so you don't waste your time. So you understand your seller's motivation 100%. It puts you in an expert position to win the listing and to properly set the expectations with the seller. When you're pre-qualifying, you're asking questions like, are you the main decision maker in this house? So you're being proactive and showing up at the home and finding out that they're actually not the one on title and not the person you should be speaking with. Or maybe the uncle is also someone who owns the house and they need to be there too before you show up for an appointment. You're also going to be asking questions such as, when are you looking to sell? Or do you have another real estate agent? Are you currently under contract? I can't tell you how many times when I first started in this career that I was so excited that I booked the appointment. I was too scared to do this pre-qualifying step because I didn't want to lose the appointment. And I showed up at the house and found out something that I didn't know that stopped me from getting that listing, such as their aunt or their friend was a real estate agent, or, they actually were going through a divorce and I didn't know that because I didn't pre-qualify their motivation before I set up that appointment. So what I've done here is we not only have the command pre-listing questions that you'll be able to find in your command. You just got to go into, and if we have time, I'll show you this to you in command, but I've also provided the bold pre-qualification. If you're interested in having this, just send me an email and I'll give you guys my email at the end, but it's info@mtteam.com. I think my admin's on this call.
Real estate team.
Thank you. I'm trying to
I'll put it in the chat for everybody right now.
Thank you. Awesome. I'll send this to you. I've found this to be the best pre-qualifying script. It is Americanized. So there's a few questions here that I've crossed out since I personally didn't think it was appropriate to ask, but you're more than welcome to ask these questions, which I'll show you right here. Okay, so the way this pre-qualifying script goes is, hi, this is Michelle with Keller Williams Realty. I'm calling to confirm our appointment at 4 o'clock on Thursday. Does this time still work for you? So you're asking them, confirming that they're going to be there. There's been so many times too where the person forgot the appointment time. I showed up, they were not there. You want to make sure you pre-qualify. Now, before I come to your house, there are a couple questions I need to ask you, so I'm fully prepared to save time. Do you have 10 minutes now? With that statement, you're showing that you're doing your research and you care, you're a professional. So, great. Now with bold, something that they teach us is how important our tone is. I'll get into this a little bit because I do think it's important with this script. So wherever you see in this script dots, so you see it says, if what I say makes sense and you ... feel comfortable, what that means is to put a pause, the 3 dots. And the reasoning is so you can emphasize the words feel comfortable. So if what I says, and the other reasoning behind that is you want to put a downward tone. And the reasoning is and I'll show you this, when you have a downward tone, it's more of a demand. It's more getting ingrained in their brain versus when you go up, it's a question. So before I get into this, just so you understand what I just said, if I say clean your room, I can say it in so many different ways. Clean your room, clean your room, clean your room. Do you guys hear the difference in the third one? Clean your room. We are ingrained since we were young to do demands. And so this is even applicable when you're leaving a voice message for a seller. It's, hey, I just want to check in and see how you're doing. This address just sold and I thought of you. Please call me back. Call me back. They're more likely to call you back with that command. So if what I say makes sense and you feel comfortable and confident I can sell your house, are you planning to list your house with me when I come out on Thursday at 2 o'clock? So you're putting it in their heads that they're going to feel comfortable. You're going to be the one to sell their house and they're going to list their house with you. So the questions are as followed. And you know what, just so I can save my voice, let's take turns reading this. Who wants to read the first one? And try and throw in that tone so you can practice and that pause. And maybe I'll call people out. That way we can get this done quicker. So Anita, number 1.
Okay. Do you plan on interviewing more than one agent for the job to sell your house?
Awesome. Anita, do it one more time and do a pause between to sell with a downward tone on the sell your house.
Do you plan on interviewing more than one agent for the job to sell your house?
Perfect. Do you guys hear the difference?
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't that sound way more confident that she's going to sell their house? Yeah. Awesome. Corey, number 2.
Tell me again, where are you moving to?
Perfect. Awesome. And then we'll just go in order who's on my screen. So Jim, can you do number 3?
How soon do you have to be there? If I sell your house in the next 30 days, would that pose a problem for you?
Awesome. Do you guys see how confident he sounds with that?
Yeah.
Good job, Jim. Okay, Nicole, number 4.
Oh. What would happen if your house did not sell?
Perfect. And then Michelle, number 5.
When I see you, how much do you want to list your house for realistically? As a professional real estate agent, I study houses and prices every day. Therefore, I assume you'll list with me at the price that will cause it to sell, correct?
Good. Yeah. Just throw maybe do a last sentence for me and throw a blank, a little like 1 second pause between list with me, where those dots are.
Okay. Therefore, I assume you'll list with me at the price that will cause it to sell, correct?
Awesome. Yeah, great. And now know that this is just proven psychologically that they're going to hear these embedded words. And as you can hear through these questions so far, you're setting the standard, the expectations, and you're going to have a blueprint of exactly what they want. If they tell you that they want to sell for a certain price, now you know what to walk in there, what their expectations are to win the listing presentation. Okay, Emma, number 6.
So what's the price you won't go below?
Perfect. And now sellers will answer this question. Sometimes they'll say, I'm going to leave it on you. And you can say, that's great. I just wanted to ask in advance so I can know what your expectation is. Okay, perfect. Looking at people who have their screen on. Stevie, can you do number 8?
Yeah. Have you ever thought about selling it yourself?
Perfect. Another question that you should 100% ask that I never used to ask. There's more people who are wanting to use other places that save money in commissions. So you can prep your scripts before you show up. That way you can address that concern when you're at that listing presentation. And then someone who doesn't have their camera on, someone give me that last question there on the bottom. Or Farhan, now that you're free, number 10.
Yes, I've been on calls with agents all day today. So are you going to purchase another home? Do you need the money from this house for your next home?
Good. Yes. So just remember that downward spin and that pause. Any questions on this pre-qualifying script? What do you think would happen if you used this?
Get more information and details about their motivation and how you can help them manage their expectations as well as reach their goals.
Awesome. Yeah, exactly.
You'll also save yourself a lot of time by going on unqualified appointments.
Yes, 100%.
As well, it would show.
Oh, Hillary, your sound is.
Oh, sorry. Is that better?
Yep.
Okay, it's showing to the potential clients that you're going to put in the work by actually asking all these information instead of just showing up.
Yes. This, I mean, when I started, I would say more people were pre-qualifying their sellers. I've seen less people do this now, but just think if you're up against competition and you're the one to call in advance, that's going to put you one step ahead of the rest. And now a good example I want to share with you with this pre-qualifying script, an example of a time I never used it, was I booked a CMA appointment, comparative market analysis in Georgina. I still remember it was 3 years ago. I went through a period of 3 weeks of not having an appointment. So I was really excited about it. Had very high energy, and I didn't know it was a divorce. So I knocked on the door, and we're going to get into this situation and explaining it to you with the listing presentation. I knocked on the door, and my normal energetic self, hey, so nice to meet you guys, Michelle. Thank you for letting me into your house. They were very thrown off from my energy, from my tone, from the way that I walked in, and they didn't choose me because they didn't like the way that I showed up. If I had just pre-qualified them, I would have likely discovered this motivation or even heard something in their tone for me to be able to instead walk in there with a more monotone approach. Hi, thank you so much for letting me into your house. I'm Michelle. Let's get started. With your permission, I'd love to see the rest of your house. You want to meet the client where they are in their model of the world, which we're going to get into a little bit here. Okay, so role playing qualifying sellers. We just went through this as a team, so I'm going to move forward just so I can teach you guys some more content on this. Okay, before we move into the listing presentation, any questions so far on qualifying and converting or pre-qualifying sellers?
I had a quick question about lead generation, because right now the struggle that I'm seeing is having to keep up with building the report, because as you're starting out, you just gotta get your name out there, right? And even during the holidays, like I told you, I was going out just saying hi to the neighbors and stuff, giving a couple of holiday cards. Then it was lockdown, so I got to a few, but there has been, I think, 2 sales that were, one was 1 street over, one is a couple blocks over, but honestly, there's like thousands of houses here. So any tips on how to reach people at a mass, and kind of how to maintain that rapport building through social media and like following up those report messages, not the client, like seller leads, they're a solid lead, they're interested to buy and sell, I can follow up with them and so on. It's more of like the soft ones that are not leads yet.
Yeah, so so through advertising and marketing would be the answer. And you can spend as much money on farming the area, like through postcards and developing what we call an 8x8. So every single week for 8 weeks, this is in the MREA, the $1 million real estate agent, anyone who's not read it, you develop a task every single week that you follow, and it's a system so that you get that mind share of the people in that neighborhood. But the best strategy that I would recommend is getting the contact information, adding them on Facebook. The reasoning is we spend so much time on Facebook and social media pages. I mean, if I were to ask you, what did you do this morning when you woke up? There's a good chance you looked at your phone. So if you can just add them on social media, and there's, it might sound like foreign to ask a stranger, but people love to connect. And then you're constant, like as long as you stay up to date, they're going to get the message that you're a real estate agent, and they're likely going to reach out to you because you're going to gain that mind share.
Right, because I was thinking, because there's so many houses, other than the neighbors who are really close by there, other than them, they're not going to see me all the time. And even if I do go down all the streets meeting everyone, how do I stay connected with each of them, like every other week, every couple of weeks, and so on,
Yeah. So when it comes to farming, I think there's like a stat out there that it takes 2 to 3 years to effectively farm a certain area. So if you're looking for a quick business, then I would go after your sphere versus the people you don't know. Because you're more likely to convert them. But I would do things from a series of door knocks, postcards, mail outs, a community event, like things that are in your control. It just will cost money to mass mail.
Yeah, I drove by those houses all the time. It's just, because of how many people there are, I just didn't get a chance to speak with them first. Yeah.
Yeah. And with, I always remember too, that some people have different motives, like the sellers that went on the market. Let's say you were actively working that neighborhood and you saw 2 sales and you got a little bit discouraged. Maybe they do have family members that are real estate agents and they would have never used you to begin with, or we just never got the opportunity to get in front of them to have a conversation. So COVID's a bit different, harder time. And what I'm recognizing and why I'm really pushing you guys to go after your sphere is now more than ever, people are having, I find, this is my personal opinion, trust issues. And they're going for the people, the real estate agents who they already know or someone else knows and refers. I'm finding less people responding to the traditional methods because this is not an easy time for most people. So they just want that familiarity.
Yeah, those 2 houses, they did seem like referrals because they were like right in the corner. One of the smaller ones all of a sudden just popped up on the market, So you can kind of tell I never even seen those agents posters anywhere and so on, So
yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. With that, I would now, even though I'm saying go after your sphere, I don't agree with you farming, as long as you stay consistent with it. What's going to work is what you're consistent with. I can tell you in the past 4 years, I remember I handed out home evaluation cards, maybe around the second year in my career. And I did get 2 leads out of that who sold 2 years later. And it was, in this case, elders who kept that little card I gave out on their fridge.
Yeah.
So it does work, but like I got lucky since I only did a community event, which was a little garage sale when I first started. And I gave out that home evaluation card. So somehow maybe they liked something on the card, but that doesn't always work that way. Like you got to stay in contact. Yeah.
I understand. And I think you said it best. It's almost like farming the area and adding them to your sphere, which you said, like add them on Facebook and so on. So you're basically turning them into your sphere and then you focusing on your sphere. So which is great. I love it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so getting into the listing presentation, on command, you guys are going to find that you're able to locate, and maybe I'll show you this because I do think this is important. So if I go into command here and I click on the left-hand side to designs, you're able to go in and click create designs. Let's say I want to do a print CMA. You'll be able to go in here and find a listing presentation that's already been created. So if I search here, listing presentation, it's going to show me a variety of different templates. In command, you can actually edit these and change it to your information. So there's no need to recreate the wheel. For those who are on here that aren't with Keller Williams, this is a Keller Williams exclusive feature. So you're not going to be able to access it, but you're going to be able to go through here page by page and edit it. So this is where, as a new agent, I would go. You can also find other things in here. So you can literally search whatever you want in this design search bar, just so you guys are aware. Going back to our presentation. So I'm the first one. I'm not the first one. I will be the first one now to tell you that the listing presentation is just that you guys are likely hyped about wanting for it to be perfect is just a piece of paper. When you go to listing presentations, your most important thing is connecting with them. And the way you're going to connect with them is through what you say, how you're going to make them feel, what you show them, but more so your body language and how you show up. So as we're going through this listing presentation, I mean, I will show you, this is what I have used in the last couple of years as a listing presentation. It's a little trifold. It goes over the things we can control when we sell your house, which is price, presentation, and marketing. I walk them through this. And I can, again, email me if you want a copy of this, but really it's just a bunch of words that helps the seller see the things that will be involved when selling their house. And on the back, it talks about the importance of social media because our team does leverage this more so than a typical real estate agent does, and more about our company. I can tell you that I printed maybe like 500 of these 2 years ago, and I've maybe used 50. So it's all about how your conversation goes at listing presentations. It's how you show up, which we're going to get into now. When you go on a listing presentation, your 3 goals, this is really basic. So if you leave here today just knowing this, know it. One is to build connection, which is the rapport. And I'm going to teach you guys how to do that. The next is to make sure you relay your value proposition. So why they should use you. And then asking for the business. I call it the RVA. This is the exact same as working with a buyer. Like whenever you are in a conversation with a lead, make sure you're building connection, giving your value, asking for the business in that order. If you just tell them you're the best real estate agent and then ask for the business, you're not likely to get the business. But if you build a rapport where they like you, know you, trust you, and then they see your value, they're going to more likely revert into an appointment. To get into this a little bit more detail, now I didn't create this. This comes from Ninja Selling for those who want to look into this. But Your job when you're on a listing presentation is to ask questions. A lot of people, I mean, even when I first started, I thought I had to master this script, which you do to an extent. You want to internalize it because you want to be able to go through a flow to get the business. But if you, the main thing you should be doing is listening and asking questions, because as we've talked about in this presentation, you're doing your best to determine their pain and their pleasure, what their motivation is. If they share that with you, then you've done your job, because as a consultant, you can now help them with a solution. So we're going to get into this. This comes from Tony Robbins. To effectively communicate, we must realize that we are all different in the way we perceive the world and use this understanding as a guide to our communication with others. Always seek to understand. So step one, connection. To play this out in a practical situation, when I show up at a door for a listing presentation, the first thing I do is enroll. I ask them how they are today. It's a basic question just to get them in communication with me, for me to even see how they respond. And now I want you guys to know that I'm taking this kind of to the next level from a neuro-linguistic programming standpoint. So the psychology behind listing presentation, on how we've converted 90% of our listing presentations when we show up. So how are you today? If they respond good, I'm awesome. You know, I'm surviving. Those are 3 different responses, and you can already get into the client's model of the world based on that response and how you should respond back to them. After you enroll, then you acknowledge them. Thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for letting me into your house. Wow, that's a beautiful front porch. You're acknowledging, complimenting them to get them to warm up to you, to acknowledge that you're in a communication conversation with them. From there, you introduce yourself. My name is Michelle. Sometimes you don't get to speak with the other person that you're on the phone with. So my name is Michelle, and I'm very excited to see your house today. Thanks again for inviting me. This all typically happens as soon as you walk in. I've seen, yeah.
Can I ask you a question? What about, when there's a language barrier? What's your wraparound with that?
Good question. So I'm going to actually pull to the next screen for that.
Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. So that's great. So 55% of our communication is body language. And the reason why I'm showing you this, and then it's voice, and then it's spoken word. So I would really, this is where with the language barrier, you have to really watch how you show up and how you make them feel. And of course, slow your words down and do your best to understand what they're saying. We're going to get into this, but what I mean by this is, don't show up crossing your arms, slouch down, very negative energy, hi, yeah, I'm good, not confident, because even with a language barrier, they're not going to want to have a conversation with you or connect with you because they're not interested in your energy.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if you go in there with the intention that, there's already a language barrier, you might automatically slouch or do something like, oh crap, it's not going anywhere. But if you can mindset yourself to think, maybe, let's spin it in a good way. So that is true. Be aware, I guess you're right.
Yeah. Have you ever walked in a room and you could just feel someone's energy that was there, and you haven't spoken to them, but you want more of it? That's how you want to show up. Yeah. It's like they say that saying, it's not about what you say, it's how you made them feel.
Yes, that's true.
You could say all the wrong things at the listing presentation, but if you just got them somehow, made them feel a certain way, they're going to choose you. Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. So building the connection. I used to, even with the agents on my team, in past, I would show up with them and I would see them skip the step of enrolling and acknowledging, going right to introducing themselves. You haven't earned the right to introduce yourself until you've enrolled and acknowledged them. This is a scientific, I guess from psychology, proven method. And know that there's no right or wrong way to do this. This is just the way that we do it, that I want to show you because it works. So going back to this slide, thank you, Stevie, for sharing that. This is a great example of when someone has a language barrier, but more specifically for you to make sure that you're showing up the way that you want to be perceived. What you wear does matter. The way you walk does matter. The way you take off your shoes does matter. Like, I recommend you take your shoes off and you respect the people there and you put your shoes together. You know, for someone who is very visual, they're going to see that you're sloppy if you just leave your shoes out. You want to be very consciously aware of the way you show up. When building rapport, your whole job, like I've mentioned in past, is for them to connect with you. Now, when I say connect with you, you want them to like, know, and trust you, because it is proven that people will buy from people they know, like, and trust. The ways that you can do this is through matching. And this is a neurolinguistic programming term, matching. So that last one there, we kind of already went over this with tone, in words and breathing. Just to touch on this a bit more, even if you're on the phone with someone, but when you're in a presentation with someone and they are talking like this, and this is how my day went, that you need to respond that way. That's great. I'm very happy to be here. And just naturally that you'll be in rapport because they feel that you're like them. Same with the way they're breathing. If someone's very fast and talking, you can even get to the point where you can watch how they're breathing and they're talking. You want to make them feel comfortable and talk to them the same way. That's matching. The other way you can match someone is their physical appearance, like their state. So if someone has their hands together like this, then you can also put your hands together like this. Obviously, like, not right away, but just like gradually copy their physical state, and they'll also feel more comfortable with you. If they're leaning on the table like this, you can also do the same. Have you ever noticed that when you're at a table and you're like, oh, I'm doing the same thing as that person? It's because you're in rapport. I've even been to the extent over Zoom meetings. Sometimes I've done listing presentations and I've caught myself, like, the wife has her hair in a bun and I'm like putting my hair up in a bun, and I don't even like intentionally mean to do it, but I see her hair's up in a bun, and psychologically you're in rapport. You also, to build rapport, want to match the client's model of the world, which essentially means, like, listen to the words they use, listen to the way that they're speaking. They could be in construction, for example. And so then you want to talk more about construction, like you want to speak like them so that they build that connection with you. And then emotional state, we've kind of spoken about this in terms of, where are they in the world today? Are they happy? Are they sad? You never want to like if they're sad, you want to still be, confident and professional, but you do want to meet them where they are. Any questions on this? Are you guys finding this valuable?
Very.
Okay. Thank you for that feedback.
Valuable.
Just want to make sure. Okay, because I know we're kind of going off of this Ignite presentation a little bit, but I feel this is way more important than you memorizing Fairy's script on a listing presentation and not knowing what to do with it. Like, you gotta also think about the way you're showing up. So, okay. Number 2. So I'm just going to go back so you can see, we just connected. We asked them the connection questions. How are you? Thank you for your time. Now we're going to ask them the foundation questions. So the foundation questions are the 4 questions that we just went over. They are the family, occupation, recreation, and dreams questions. I find these questions typically happen. For me, I like to view the home before I sit down at the table. So I'll ask them permission. If it's okay with you, let them guide it. Is it all right if we look through your home? If I can see your home. And while we're on our tour, I'll ask them, so how is work? Oh, you're relocating. Where are you relocating? How many people are in your family? Asking them the questions that they know the answers to. So psychologically, the reason you do this is because you want them to have clarity, confidence, and be comfortable to make a decision. When you ask them questions they already know the answer to, they are going to feel more comfortable with you because they're able to answer the questions. I've seen agents go into listing presentations, go right to the table and jump in. So where are you moving to? That's going to make people feel very uncomfortable if they don't know the answer to it, because you're asking them questions that they're not prepared to answer. But if you start with these basic foundation questions, you're not only going to make them feel comfortable in their decision-making, but you're also going to show them that you care and you're there because you care about them, so they can care about what you have to say. which is the quote on the bottom. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Also, you're interviewing, you might see a picture on the wall from Italy and you compliment the picture and ask them, oh, did you take this photo? And they're going to tell you about a trip and how they love to travel, but they stopped traveling because the house has been too much work for them. And that's why they're going to be moving into a condo because they want to travel more. You would have never had that opportunity to have that conversation if you didn't ask these foundational questions for them to share. So just to point one more thing on this, when I say comfortable to make a decision, psychologically, it's like when you go to sales presentations and they say yes, say yes. It's because they're getting you to commit to saying yes and into the decision-making process to buy something. So if you can get them comfortable to answering questions for you now, then when it comes to the harder questions, which we're getting into next, they'll be more comfortable to answer them. Okay, so number 3, diagnostic questions. I typically don't get into these questions until we're sitting down, and I don't get into these questions until I feel there's a good rapport with the seller. A great example of this is I had clients last year who moved from Vaughan to Barrie. If I didn't ask the foundation questions, and I wouldn't have found out she got hit by a car in Vaughan, and she was moving because she had PTSD with the traffic where they were living. And she also was diagnosed with cancer a few years ago. Would have never found that out for the reason they were living with Vaughan. What I did know was that they were running out of money. So I would have just assumed that they had no money and they had to sell and move. But now that I was able to ask these foundational questions, I was able to build a relationship to further get referrals and to actually know why they're moving. So diagnostic questions, this is where we're getting back into the who, what, where, when, how, and we're diving deeper for clarity. This is where you're going to find out things such as, if they don't know where they're moving to, then you're going to dive deeper with that. Where would you like to move to? Where is the ideal place you want to be? Because, like, to give you an example, we had a seller earlier this year. They didn't know where they wanted to go. I got the listing, put my sign on the lawn. Things felt really weird. They didn't know where they wanted to go, but they were ready to sign the listing with me. And at that point, I was like, hey, let's keep rolling with it. I get a call from the seller later that week. I didn't do a good enough job with these diagnostic questions. And I find out they're going through a divorce. And they don't know if they're going to be moving into 2 separate homes or if they're going to be moving together. Immediately, because I come from a consultant standpoint, we took the sign off the lawn, because I didn't feel it was appropriate to go and sell their house without them knowing what they're going to do with their financial situation and the divorce. What did that do? It helped. They already have sent us a referral because we came from a consultant standpoint, but this is where the diagnostic questions come into play. Now, your clients might not feel as comfortable with you at this point in the step to give you all the answers, but it's at least, a start so that they do feel comfortable with answering these questions. Now, once you figure out the diagnostic questions, then you can propose something to them. That's their solution. That's the value you're there for. That's their next steps. This is now where, somewhere between the diagnostic and the proposal, you're likely going through the CMA, showing them the value of their home. You're providing them any information they need to know to be informed on the market and explaining to them that your process, if you feel it's necessary. But I would honestly tell you, forget the handouts. Your main goal is to ask these questions, because if you can build that relationship with them, they don't really care what you're going to do. They honestly don't. Like, to an extent they do, and you should be prepared to tell them. But people mainly buy based on that connection and feeling comfortable with you. So once you've told them our team is going to do this and that, and basically outlined a story from start to finish of how easy the process is going to be, now you can help them discover what their solution is. I've seen agents go about this with, I believe your house is worth this and this is what we should do. Or you can go at it where they're the hero of their own story and you ask them, based on what I've shown you, where do you think we should price your house? I find it's way more effective if you let them come to the conclusion on what they should do. And if you've done a good enough job asking the questions and you've built that rapport, they're going to ask you to let's go. I want to work with you. It's not even going to be a question of convincing. you're able to basically come up with this proposal based on the pains and pleasures that they've told you from a consultant standpoint. Farhan, I think you just raised your hand.
Yeah, I had a quick question. So when you said you asked them and you let them tell you what they think their house is worth or where they want to list, what else do you use? Do you use like certain market reports, comparables? What are some features that you use to guide them to the accurate understanding? Because sometimes they might think way too high, but then once you show them the right information, the right market trends, they give you a more accurate answer, I'm sure.
Yeah, so luckily enough, Farhan and I actually just recently sold his parents' house earlier this year. And so Farhan, remember when I brought that CMA of the prices? And I said, so just so everyone knows, I usually bring in, what I usually do is I bring in homes that are on the market, 2 or 3, homes that have recently sold, 2 or 3, and homes that expired, terminated, canceled. I call them the never, never land. And I am very strategic to the ones I bring in. I don't bring in, like I bring in them all, but I think of my plan on how I'm going to get them to see that their house is worth 800,000. And what I do is I go through each MLS listing. Beforehand, I highlight the important things, you know, the bedrooms, the price, the days on market, anything that's specific about that house. And I say, hey, look, 123 Main Street, what did it sell for? And I get them to interact with me. Oh, it sold for 870. Okay, and this is what it looked like. And I give them the photos. Then the next one, 642 Main Street. It sold in 2 days. It sold for 900,000. How do you think your house compares to this? So you're getting them to interact with you so that they are coming to the conclusion themselves. Now, there will be times when the seller says, well, my house is not compared to these. I can't believe you brought these in here. My house is worth way more. Okay, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, tell me, why is your house worth way more? Let them talk. You're interviewing them and they're going to talk. And sometimes they even self-discover that they're wrong. Oh, but the wife starts talking. Oh, but that one sold for 960, Joe. Like, what do you mean? And they will self-discover themselves sometimes. Other times you'll have to say, hey, look, you hired me or you brought me in as a consultant and I don't make the market. I just interpret it. What I'm here to show you is what the market is saying, and I don't dictate it. So you can see here that these homes sold for this. What do you think is going to happen if we price at this price? So just like play out the options in scripts. From time to time, I'm going to go back to my listing presentation for a graph that I do find helpful. So you'll see here, it says pricing. I'll show them this graph and I'll say, look, if we price right where your house is worth, market value, we're going to get 60% of buyers in. If we price above, we're going to get less buyers and less buyers. My job as your real estate agent and consultant is to make sure that we sell your house for the most amount of money. If we underprice it, we're going to get more buyers. In this market, of course, with low supply, that strategy does work with multiple offer. Depends on what market you're in, but you basically explain to them what the outcome is. Like explain, because they don't know. Sometimes they just think if they put a high price tag, they're going to get that price. But in some instances, it only hurts them.
That's amazing. Thank you.
You're welcome. Everyone got that? Any questions off of that? Because that was a good question.
Could you repeat what you said? You said I don't dictate the market, I just interpret it.
Yeah, I don't dictate the market, I just interpret it and what the market is saying.
I really like that. That's awesome.
These are scripts. And so another one that you will probably hear a lot is, I don't have a crystal ball, but if I did, the market would. So always rely to the market for your numbers. And the reason on this note, I like to put it in their shoes is because people like to be their own hero. Like, I don't know if you guys have ever thought about this, but when someone wants to tell someone else their real estate journey, like our names rarely come up in some instances. Like it's about how many offers there were, how they felt, what went on. They want to be the reason they got the house. And if you decide that you're going to be the reason they got the house, like you're that agent that goes on Facebook and you're like, oh, like we got them this and we like, then it kind of ruins the experience for them. Like you want them to be their hero. And by you letting them be the hero, they will love you that much more because you helped them, aided them into doing that. Okay, we're doing good on time. So if you don't take anything from this presentation today, but this, you'll be in good standing. I choose to believe you will take a lot of this though. And what this is saying is listening is a lost art form. If you listen, you'll find the answers. I know I've mentioned this throughout the presentation. There's that, you know, they say, I can't remember who said this, but I read in a book, there's 3 levels of listening. First is when you're constantly trying to think about what you're going to say next. And you're in your head and you're having a conversation and you're thinking, oh my God, what do I say? What do I say? What do I say? The next is when you are able to actually sit there and not think about what you're going to say next. You're in the moment and you're listening to what they have to say. And then the third level of listening is when you're able to see the submodalities, like everything that person's doing, their body language, their tonality, their voice, and using a top-down approach to be able to respond. You know, it goes back to the quote, they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So just listen and the answers will appear. He who speaks loses. This is a common thing that you might hear. And when you speak, you dominate a meeting, but when you listen, you control the meeting. So when you're in conversation with your clients, let them talk. They will tell you exactly what you want to hear. And just a quote on the bottom here from Abraham Lincoln, when I get ready to talk to people, I spend 2/3 of the time thinking about what they want to hear and 1/3 about what they want to say. This is, you know, this goes similar to coaching, even so, or when you're helping someone with their goals, the person you're speaking to, they have all the answers. Like they honestly do. They're the content. Everyone, when someone says they don't know, they know. They just, no one's asked them the right questions to be able to get it out. So listen. And make sure you ask for the business. So this is a quote on the right that I've always, you know, I heard it from Bold 4 years ago. I keep it in my journal. It says, ask and it shall be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and the door shall be opened to you. So many, many times people ace the entire listing presentation. They do a fantastic job pre-qualifying, but then they don't ask for the business. You have to ask for the business. You know, if you don't ask, then they don't know what to give you. So at the end of every time you meet with someone, then you might say, are you ready to move forward? I'd love to get started, back to those closing assumptions that I showed you guys, and to get them to move forward. Okay, so we're doing great on time. I do have other content that we could pop into, but before we do, any ahas from this presentation or burning questions?
When you're pre-qualifying them over the phone and you're establishing a rapport and confirming the time, when are you asking about their property, about if they've done any upgrades or anything like that? Are you asking those questions as well?
Yeah, so typically what I'll do is, so I will ask them what the address of their property is when I'm qualifying them as a seller. Maybe they say 123 Main Street. And then I will let them know, okay, great, thank you. I want to do some research and I'm going to follow up with you before our appointment. So then on the pre-qualifying script of, you know, are you the main decision maker? Are you using another agent? I will clarify any questions that I have from searching the property on the Toronto Real Estate Board or Barrie Board. For example, I want to confirm this is a 2-bedroom home. You guys have an unfinished basement. Your lot size is this. That way, when you go in, you have the right comps with you. Now, this is one way to go about it. There are real estate agents who successfully do the two-step approach, thank you, where they go in and they assess the property and go back for a second time with their CMA. I think that's a very valuable way to go about it, especially if you don't know the property. Because we're mainly dealing with sphere of influence type sellers, it just works for us to do it all in one step to save time. And if you know your market well enough, then you can pivot while you're there. Like there has definitely been times where I showed up and I didn't pre-qualify them, found out their house was completely remodeled, brought in comps that were worth 400,000 or 500,000, when now I think their house is worth 800,000. And I look like a fool a little bit, but I would just be honest. And I said, you know what? I thought this is what your property was, but I know my market really well. Your house is worth around this. And what I would like to do, if you're okay with it, is I want to send you comps to support that. Sometimes I'll pull up my computer in that moment, or I'll send it to them by email after.
And are you printing off the CMA, or are you just doing it on the screen, or both? Or
good question. I'm very hands-on with paper. I have tried to do it on my computer to save money on ink, as an example.
Me too.
Yeah, but I find that I'm like very dysfunctional. Like when I have a computer and I'm trying to flip through things, like I get very anxious, especially if something happens with technology. So I print everything. Usually I have a stack that's this big, to be very transparent with you, of what's on the market, everything on the market that a buyer could be looking at, that's competition, everything that's sold in the neighborhood, like for the last year, because the seller might say, oh, what did Joe and Jane get at this list? Oh, they got this. And then I print off the MLS client versions. I print off the photos and put them in the CMA that Treb does for us, where it shows us the days on market and the summary.
Yeah. Okay. And do you bind it, or you just have it loosely, or does it really matter? Probably not, or?
Yeah, so I mean, I've seen agents bind it and it looks professional and awesome. I put it in a folder, a Keller Williams folder, which you can buy at the front desk, that basically just has Keller Williams logo on it. And I leave it, the paper loose, more so because I like to hand the papers to the client. And when there's 2 or 3 people, they might take turns with the papers. Of course, do your best when you're putting it back together, that it's not like a mess. But you kind of get, that's the way that I go about it.
Okay, thanks.
You can also, at your listing presentation, rely on, you can bring handouts, and I do recommend it if you have it. But when I say just focus on, how you're showing up and your mindset and so on, it's more so because that's what's most important. But once you get to a point where you can to bring supporting stuff, that's great, like testimonials, your marketing plan. Our team has a 32-point marketing plan that details everything that we're going to do. And I find that's very powerful, because the way I word it is, a lot of agents will come in here and tell you they're going to do this, this, and this, but I'm laying it out right here. And this is exactly what we do, giving them the confidence. You can go in there with a personal service guarantee. You can come equipped with anything you have that's going to show them your service.
Farhan has his hand raised.
Quick question here. What you said about the Keller Williams folder, how you give them like a little market report and so on. Could that be used towards lead generation? Because a couple people, like I said, that I met or that might be inclined to, because I want to bring them value, because I don't want to be just knocking on their door for nothing, right? I remember Wayne Clements was saying that every month he goes to like all these people's houses and he drops off, hey, here's a market report in your recent neighborhood and so on. He does a lot of that. It's incredible how much he does. So
yeah, so totally. It's so think of the best way to look at it is back to that RVA that I told you guys, rapport value appointment. So how can you provide value to get that appointment or get that client? And a way could be information. So giving the comparative market analysis is to sellers by door. More recently, what our team has recently implemented is virtual CMAs, quick 3-minute videos of just where the market is and recent solds in the neighborhood. I'm so far finding those super effective for past clients, and they're being so willing to tell me what their next steps are in the next couple months, so I can keep them on my radar.
Awesome. Because I talked to a couple people, they're saying, oh, we might be thinking a year or two down the road and then get a house in Muskoka or Uxbridge. So I'm sure like if I can start building that report, like I can bring them a few market reports. I'm sure when they want to really know, they'll reach out to me. Hopefully.
Yes.
That's great. Thank you, Michelle.
Yeah, you're welcome. I believe, Hez, you have your hand up as well.
Hey, Michelle. Yeah. Sorry, just to touch on, tack on to Farhan's question. I guess initially my thought was, my question was going to be, so initially you get in contact with the person who has the potential to list a home, and so let's say they tell you, oh yeah, in about 8 months or a year or so, that's my time frame. What would you say would be effective in terms of making sure they remember you? And I mean, obviously you get in touch with them, but are there specific methods that you find effective, or the frequency, or what do you provide them? I mean, I can keep calling them every week or every month and saying, hey, how's it going? Anything I can support you. But for 8 months long, it could end up being the same thing over and over. And they'd be like, what the heck, right? Like how do you change it up, or what kind of value? Because it has to be long enough or, consistent enough, but you need different kind of, information for them, right? I mean, you get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, 100%. So this is where your follow-up system, your marketing plan is key. If someone told me they wanted to sell in 8 months, the first thing I would do is I would note that most people overestimate their move by like double. So I would make sure to follow up minimum in the 4 months, because just things happen, things change, especially right now with people's job situations and things like that. But what I would do is, if they're up to 8 months out, I'd probably touch base with them every 2 weeks. And I would, a great example of a follow-up plan would be, you have your initial call. 2 weeks later, you can send them a little video of what's on the market. You can send them an email of some recently solds in the neighborhood. Hey, just thinking of you. Hey, just thinking of you. Hey, just thinking of you. Send them a card. Go at it from like a building a relationship standpoint, not asking for the business. And you can, we love send out cards. That's a program we use on our team. And in send out cards, it's a virtual way to send your cards essentially. And there's tons of different templates in there, from thinking of you cards to it's spring, happy birthday, whatever it is. Just find creative ways to touch them. And in the card, I would be intentional, excited to work with you in the near future, excited to have the opportunity to work with you. So you're planting that seed.
Got it. And then also when you say cards and design, I'm guessing you're talking about like command within design, they're with the different cards and templates, I guess.
So the program that we use is actually called Send Out Cards. If you Google it, it's outside of command, and you can virtually send cards without having to handwrite it or do postage. Now, we don't, just so you guys kind of have another, just an idea with this, we don't just send cards, like we stock them on Facebook to be very transparent, and we find a picture of their family, of them, of something they've posted, and we make sure to make it very personal so that it's more than just a standardized card. And so send out cards is, it's a physical card that gets mailed to them, just like if you were to handwrite it, but digitally.
Yeah, I got experience with that. I recently got your card with my kid's picture in there. So
yeah,
I'm gonna open it. I knew what you were trying to do.
No, so I mean, with that, know that so with our team, we're just very of value in building relationships. So with clients, with friends, with family, we're all about just being top of mind with them, so they know that we're there for them in any capacity, in this case as a real estate agent, as a friend, colleague. So
for sure. Well,
but you should check out the card.
Yeah, I will. So now, yeah, I guess in a way my question was, I guess if you touch base with them every 2 weeks, would you run out of things to send them though? Because I mean, you can't just keep sending them analysis every 2 weeks, right? Because I mean, it becomes the same thing, you know what I mean? Every 2 weeks.
So you would be surprised. even if you were to check the market and do a radius search around their house every month, you'll see that some activity is happening of some kind. And there's Farhan's card. Just so you guys can see, that was a Christmas card. And we have a lot of actually people on this call of agents and clients and stuff like that. So with that being said, you'd be surprised. When I started in the industry, I always had my hot leads top of mind, even if I've never met them yet. I just knew they were going to sell, and I didn't want to be pushy. And I felt like I should leave it 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. But the reality is these people are not thinking of you. Like, they don't even know your name in some situations. Like, you have to stay top of mind at least, every month or every couple of weeks. Otherwise they will forget about you because people live busy lives. So whenever you have this gut feeling, this is why I teach the team, that you should be in contact with that person, just send an email, send a text message, send something so that it's off of your mind and you're still following up. The reality is, come 8 months, most of the time what I see is that potential client will appreciate and comment our follow-up. I can't believe you followed up every single month. This is amazing. And they see that as a reflection to you selling their house.
Sounds good. Thank you, Michelle.
You're welcome. Get creative too. Like, I've heard of agents who will send out in the mail leaf team schedules, lottery tickets. You can go with holidays. Like, even if you think in 8 months, there's usually at least 3 holidays you can send something for. So
what are the costs like when you're sending out like a large volume of cards or postcards? What are the costs seem to be like at times?
You of course have your creation costs if you don't do it by yourself, like someone else is creating for you, which could range from, I've seen $100 to $300 depending on who's creating it. And then you have your postage and Canada Post costs. So I think, we don't do postcards, like we're very digital versus print, but we did do postcards for an exclusive listing a few months ago, and we sent out 600 postcards, and I believe the cost was around $300 or $250. That was for Canada Post to put it in the mailbox.
That's great. Was it like a recently sold card to the neighbors and stuff?
This was a pick your neighbors before someone else does card. This was a exclusive listing. Who do you know who wants to live in the area?
Very creative.
Yeah. Now, we didn't get any calls from that, but as I've mentioned to you in my history of postcards and just print materials, they typically come later. People will keep the postcards if they found that it was of value.
Just a comment, Danielle just wrote in the comments that Canva is a great option to create your own stuff for a very affordable cost. You can even have the free version as well if you're especially looking to cut down on costs, but she just wanted to say that.
Awesome.
And yeah.
No, that is a good suggestion, Canva. They've already got templates there for you. And I mean, when I started, I was printing things black and white. I did that for about a year until I had enough money, like being very transparent with you. And so I went to the office and I printed things black and white and I cut them and I did what I could. So I really wouldn't, I really don't recommend you spending money until you're making money, because you will put yourself in a hole. I remember when I first started, I was so eager to raise money for mental health, and I felt I had this platform and I had no money. So I actually had a family member help me, and we used clothes hangers to put signs in the lawn. Didn't have the money for signs. And so that you just got to get creative on how you're going to do it. Honestly, I've used Command Designs for designing open house stuff and flyers. It's super easy to use, and they've got nice templates too. Awesome. So leveraging Command. Something else I'd recommend too is reach out to the people who you look up to as real estate agents. No need to create the wheel for anything. As Keller Williams agents, I find everyone loves to share. So just ask around. Like, don't go to the extent of creating something until you've exercised asking some people, because likely they'll share what they have and you can just kind of alter it. Any other questions?
So when you have a list,
Mhm.
when you have a listing, what other type of digital marketing are you doing
Yeah,
to
so
market it?
sure. So, I mean, there's a variety of different things you can do. We exercise all of our social media platforms, of course, and Kijiji, anything that where we could get it out for reach. We look at, there's some like third-party websites like the Dark List. I think they just renamed. To be honest, my admins are throwing everything out, so maybe lean to Hillary now. But we do, anywhere we can put it, Marketplace, we do things like that. If you feel that there's well, this is something that's coming up in today's world, things sell in a day. So it's not really effective to do a campaign on social media anymore where you advertise it through paid advertising to hit certain buyers. Because if it sells in a day, then the campaigns usually last at least a week, 4 days, but you can boost your posts. You can pay for advertising from those means. You can also send your listings out to agents in the area, anywhere where you can get that reach. Postcards, like we made mention. That's where we found most. But right now, we're living in a really lucky market where things are selling within 24 hours. So in a lot of cases, you do just have to put it on the real estate market. And what I would recommend for these marketing strategies is more for you to get more leads.
Yeah, so when you're on your listing presentation and we're saying, we're going to market your home the best and we're going to do this and that, well, they're not stupid either. They know that stuff sell in a day, 2 days. So when they ask you, where's that commission going towards when it's going to sell in a couple of days anyways?
Yeah, good question. So when that comes up, and it actually hasn't come up for me in a while, only because when you deal with past clients and friends, they don't question it. But when it's cold leads, I would rely more to your expertise in your negotiation. Because the reality is, and I've seen this, all of our listings last year, if it wasn't for me pushing the agents, we wouldn't have gotten the extra $150,000 in the multiple offer strategies. Like something our team does, for example, that you might have not thought of or you're doing now is it's not enough to just get showing feedback. The day of the offer presentation, I personally message every single person and I try and convince them to put an offer in. I'm not kidding, because my job is to get the seller the most amount of money. So not all agents will do that. And so that's like an example of where you're getting your money, because you explain to them that you're going to do everything you can to get them the most amount of money. I've even gone to the extent when that question comes up, if I feel like I'm very stumped and they're not getting past that, I'll say, hey, look, right now, I'm telling you, my commission's non-negotiable. This is what we charge. And I explain to you the reasoning. You can go off to the scripts of, have you ever paid for what, there's all those different scripts on having an agent that's full cost, but I'll go to the extent to say, if I don't provide you the value that I'm showing you I am, then we can have another conversation when offers come in. I remember once in Bradford, it was 2 years into my career. I was very adamant on not dropping my price and I left it blank. I said, hey, look, how about we leave it blank? And when we get offers, then you'll see the value that I'm going to bring forward. And they didn't question it. And when their offers came, I still got the 2.5%. So.
Okay, thanks for sharing. Yeah.
Yeah, just getting kind of strategic. Believing in your value is the biggest thing.
Yes.
Yeah. Believe it or
I'm
not.
Getting better this year.
Good. People, we think that they want to save money, and the script that I've used in the past is, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, it sounds like you want to net the most amount of money. Is that correct? Yes. Well, this is only the commission. What you're going to net is what you're going to make after I negotiate for you. So if I were to just put 2% here and I don't do all of my negotiations, like maybe I act like one of the other real estate agents that are giving you a discount, but I only get you 900,000 versus if I take my full commission of 30 grand and I get you 1,050,000, which would you prefer? The 1,050,000. Great. Well, let me show you, because I do have the best negotiation strategies and I'm ready to show you. Or, another script you can use is, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, if I would be willing to negotiate my commission right now, how am I going to negotiate the value of your home?
Yeah.
And just leave it, just don't say anything.
Mhm.
Oh, but Joe Blow is going to give it to me for 1%. That's great. And if you want Joe Blow to come in here and sell your house, who's looking for quantity versus quality, then you can go do that. But I'm here with a proven track record and have sold homes this, or the team has sold homes this, and this is what our commission rate is.
And so do you bring in your own MLS listings then to show them
Yes.
how long it's been on the date? You've done that? Okay.
Oh, for our like track record?
Yeah.
Yeah. So honestly, when I was in my second and third year and I wasn't as established, I would bring my closed trades and I would take out the commission. So I had something, because to be transparent with you guys, I started when I was really young. And so at that time, I did have a little bit of a leeway to try and prove myself. But the power of social media is that, if someone's following you, they already know what you're doing. And so when you go in for that listing presentation, they don't have any doubts because they already see. So if you can just prove yourself online, then there won't be the questions when you show up in person. I believe there was another question.
It was me, Michelle. I was just gonna
Yeah.
ask about, like, if you're a new agent and you don't have like a lot of backing in terms of like past clients or anything like that. I think you kind of alluded to it, but I was just wondering, like, what can you leverage as, like, I bring this to the table compared to, like, our seasoned real estate veteran.
Yeah, this is something that I remember battling. So you can bring in your brokerage sold. So what I would do is, before I go to listing presentation, I'd look at what Keller Williams Realty and centers it for the brokerage that we're with sold in the area, and I'd say, look, this is what my team has sold. Because the reality is your brokerage is your brokerage. Like you all sold it technically. So you can rely to your brokerage. I used to use the line that, and I still do, I'm young and hungry and I have the time and I'm going to get you top dollar. Like
Yeah.
it's not a situation where I have the family and I can only work certain hours. Like with me, you're getting full energy and I'm going to be relentless to sell your house.
Yeah. Okay. That's something I would have said too. Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah. And you can use, I remember someone taught me this in the beginning and I likely did use it at some point, but what it was is the handout, and it said something along the lines of, if I don't know the answer, I promise to ask. Or it was something along the lines of this, so that you even, if they knew you were a new agent, you can say, look, I am giving you a guarantee that I will do whatever it takes. And if I don't know the answer, I will be asking someone, and you'll for sure get the professional service that you would get anywhere else.
Yeah.
I think, is there any other comments in the chat?
Yeah, I actually just wanted to make a point, if I could. I think it was Tammy that mentioned, like, sellers aren't stupid. Like, they know that homes are selling kind of regardless. So a point that I've kind of made recently is just like, when you talk about, like, other agents are able to kind of cut corners because they see that homes are kind of selling on their own. So maybe they're not putting in the full effort when it comes to home staging or photography or marketing, and that's saving them money, but the seller doesn't realize that they're saving money and they're still getting their full commission. So you can say, like, I'm not going to be cutting those corners that other agents might, knowing that your home is going to sell. so you can bring value, you know, saying like, I'm still doing all of the things I would normally do and not cutting any of those steps to save any money. And that just speaks to the value of who and what you are as an agent.
Well, thank you so much. That's nicely put as well.
Yeah. Marvin Alexander, our previous OP, he used to use this line where he brought in this visual on a PDF and he took the tax off and then he took the marketing off and then he took all of the expenses off. And he's like, hey, look, when you pay me 30,000, I'm actually only making 5. And at the end of the day, this is my career and I do have to feed my family. So although you see this big amount, that's not actually the case in the outcome. So, I mean, that there is the reality of it.
Oh, yeah.
He even took a piece of paper. I remember this one time and I'd have to look into it for you guys, but he cut it into 4. He'd like, this goes to the tax man. This goes to staging. This goes to this. This is what I'm left. And when you can show that physical example, they understand.
Yeah, because I feel like a lot of people, especially social media, like they always comment on saying like realtors are driving the market to raise the high prices and oh, they get a lot of our hard-earned money, but they don't really, you know, study and see themselves, like dive into what it takes to sell a house sometimes, not just like listing it. And then if you can like prove them wrong, I guess you get respect from them too.
Yes, 100%. I would challenge you guys to not drop your commission, whatever you do, especially from the beginning, because once you drop your commission, it's very hard to get out of that, especially when your business is repeat and referral. And I will be very transparent. I'm an open book. When I started, I thought it would be a good idea to give rebates when someone bought and sold with me. So I'd take the full commission on the sale. When it came to the buy, I'd give them, in the beginning, it was a percentage back and then it was 0.5 back. And then as I started to grow the team, I realized that wasn't financially okay. Like that wasn't, if I'm giving my leads off to my team, then they need to be making the full commission. So I stopped doing that. But I remember, you know, I probably did that for a handful of people. So when they came back to me, they expected it. And I had to explain that I'm now a team. I was able to change it. But if I was still an individual, it would be very difficult to get out of that. Also, you will appreciate yourself way more when you're making the full commission. You will get to a point where you actually believe that it is not worth your time if it's less commission. And I remember when I was maybe my second year and I think I took something for like 2% and I never did that. Like, I can't recall why I did, but I did. And I hated my life through that entire transaction. I just kept thinking about how, like, why did I do that? And the seller was, you know, calling me all the time. It was like the worst seller, of course. And you start to hate the industry, like you hate your job because you know the potential. So I would say, ask and you shall receive. Like, don't even go in thinking that they're going to question it, because you know, I think we sometimes think that they are, and there's sometimes the case that they're not.
Yeah.
All these things are coming to mind. Another strategy you can use that I use, because we haven't done it's been more sphere. So there's been less listing presentations, but you can go in at 6%. And I've done this many times, written 6%. So get it typed before you go in there. And then when you're talking about commission, you can say, hey, look, I typically charge 6%, but for you, I will do it for 5%. And that sometimes aids the wanting a discount type personality.
One thing I just wanted to say, people who think realtors make too much money, 2 weeks of lead generation, they will understand why we get paid what we get paid, you know? Like it's tough. It's not easy. It's a lot of work behind the scenes. Like it's a lot of hours, you know? So
yeah,
it's all that foundation work that goes into it. So which a lot of people don't see. But when they're in the experience and you're actually negotiating and they're getting that value and the market trends you're predicting the market trends right, they start appreciating it and they actually see the work you put in, the hours you put in.
No, 100%. Okay, well, that concludes our session. I'm going to stay on for the next 10 minutes if anyone has any questions, but for those who are going to pop off, thank you for being on this call. Feel free to reach out to me, which I'm going to throw my information here. That way you can, there you go. If you want to reach out to me, if you have any questions about anything that we discussed today, interested in coaching, want to follow our social media, that's all the information here. And I honestly wish you guys the best during Ignite. I really encourage you to use this to your fullest for those who are in the program, because anything you put into place now is just going to skyrocket your business in the next 60 to 90 days.
Thank you, Michelle.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Michelle. That was wonderful. Thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you, Michelle.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Michelle.
You're welcome. Nice to see you all.
Thanks. Take care.
I have another quick question for you, Michelle.
Yeah.
When they ask you, okay, well, Michelle, how much do you think my home is worth? What type of range are you giving them? Dollar amount?
Yeah. Is this like at the listing presentation after?
Yeah.
So, so in this market, I actually don't really give them a number. Yeah. In this market, I will say, this is what the market is saying your house would be worth. That being said, as you can see, houses are selling for way more, and I'm going to do everything I can to market your house. So it could sell upward of this price. So to give you an example, we had a house on the market in Holland Landing. We listed it at 1,399 because the seller wanted 1.8, which was not realistic. But we thought we might as well try in this market. I told him the market value is sitting around 1.5, maybe 1.6. We got a preemptive offer for 1.7, believe it or not. And I was not expecting that. Like, it's a bungalow.
I know my brother lives on that street,
Donaldson?
so I know that area a bit. Yeah,
Yeah, we got a preemptive for 1.7. So if I would
oh my God.
I know. So if I would have said it's only worth 1.4, that would have been not good. So we ended up getting a preemptive for 1.7. The seller still wanted 1.8, but at least I set the expectations that, if we get any offers over 1.5, 1.6, that's going to be a really good offer.
Yes, it's all about wording and how you say it.
Yeah. But in a typical market, I usually do a range of about $30,000. Like in a market where we can predict the price, maybe $50,000. And I will explain what we do know is your home is this, it's a detached with 3 bedrooms, 2 washrooms. Homes with a similar lot are going for this price. Your finishes are subjective to what the buyer feels it's worth. We don't always get our return on investment. So for a buyer who wants a move-in ready home, you could get $50,000 more than these listings. You have a walkout basement, so you probably get $30,000 more, but the ballpark is this.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you very much. Really
Timmy,
appreciate your.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Sorry.
Another line you can use that I've been using is I would be doing you a disservice to give you a number that it's going to sell for. And then they like, what do you mean? And I say, well, in this market, no one can predict what your house is going to sell for. I want you to get minimum market value, which I believe is this, but let's strive for as much as we can. And then when you show them that optimism, they're like, okay, yeah, let's see what we can do.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you. I got to work on that one better.
Yeah, this recording will be somewhere. So.
Okay, great. So I can just replay it.
Yeah.
In my sleep.
Yeah.
Have Michelle on while you go into sleep, get everything in the subconscious there. Michelle, since you're here, I just wanted to kind of bring up another little scenario here. It's actually the client that I was dealing with today, right? So they're inclined to buy a house and their budget is about 1 million, 1.1 million, all right? And this is his first home by himself.
Mhm.
He does make a good amount of money, so he does have cash on hand and so on. So he has resources, right? So now he really wanted to get a house, and literally like 2-3 days ago, he reached out to me. We went on the showing yesterday, and one of the houses he really liked, but it was almost one of those houses where the space is not there, and the seller has just done some cheap upgrades, cheap upgrades to make it look nice, make it look appealing, or make it attractive for someone who can't put any renovations. So they want something that's decent looking, and so they'll be happy. There was like 46 showings on it, and there's already 14 offers on it, right?
Mhm.
So it's going way over his budget, right? So we wanted to put an offer, but I told him, hey, like think about this, because like you mentioned, like you can get these renovations done, and you can get much better renovations done yourself. Like you can actually pump cash into the house, because his main concern is in a year or two, he wants to get some decent value out of it, right?
Mhm.
So I told him that if you want something that's upgraded and so on, a lot of these houses, they're going for 1.2, 1.25 now, and they're much smaller. And the house that you saw, even if you do 40, 50, 60,000 of renovation, there's not enough space to multiply that investment. You know what I mean? So I was kind of suggesting him to get something that's a little bit of a fixer upper. So no major things, maybe just floors, kitchen cabinets updates, and so on. And then because he can easily pump in 150 to $200,000 for renovation because he has cash on hand, and that's the easy part for him. The mortgage is the one that's complicating things, right? So I told him, like, if you're looking to get in and out within a year to 2.5 years, I think it would be better if you get something 900, 1 million. It's a little bit outdated, but you have space to work with. So a big kitchen with outdated cabinets, gut it out, put the ones that you want, and so on. And 2 years down the road, that will give like a lot of value. And potentially, he's a potential seller with me, as I'm seeing, even though he's a buyer now, right?
Yeah.
So any advice or on how to navigate it, or any feedback on what I recommended him? Because that house, it's probably going to go for over 1.2, and it's 1/4 of the house that we got.
Yeah. So, I mean, it sounds like the first question or concern is, of course, figuring out his budget. Like I would go back and figure out what he can actually qualify for. And then if he can only qualify for the million or 1.1, then of course, that's the only option. It sounds like for the fixer upper. But, and I think what you gave is great advice, especially, for someone who wants to hold on to the property. But I would just be careful. Sometimes if you, like for all we know, he actually doesn't want to renovate. And so by you giving that solution, he feels that he or she might feel that you don't believe you can get him what he's looking for, and then go somewhere else.
So this is the thing. One house that I showed him yesterday, the first one, that was in Oshawa, right? And it was listed for $1 million. So it would potentially sell for maybe 1.2, 1.25, around that range, right? But they walked in, they loved the openness of it, they loved the waterfall countertops, and it wasn't like the fanciest countertop, it was one of the cheaper ones, but it looks clean, it looks sharp, right? So that's what they really want. So I showed them that, to show them that, hey, look, like if you want something like that, your budget has to be 1.25. He got approved for 1.35, but he doesn't want to take on that extra bid because of his business, because he's planning on opening like multiple locations for his business. So there's a few things there. So he wants to stay within 1.1, but then I was showing him, it's either you compromise on the space, or you compromise on the renovations, right?
Yeah.
Because it's gonna be outdated within that budget, or if it's gonna be half updated with a cramped space, which is the house that you want to put an offer on. And I explained that to him, that it is a little bit cramped and you can't expand space, and whatever could be expanded, these guys already did it. So how much more can you add on location is great, but will it give you that value that you are looking for down the road?
Yeah, no, got you. So yeah, it sounds like the only other factor is location, which you've gone through. So I would just continue to send him the sold stats so he can wrap his head around the markets in those areas. And I find sometimes with buyers, you do have to put the offers on the properties so they can go through the experience and lose the house for them to recognize where the market is. Because with you verbally or you showing them, it doesn't always click in their mind. So just kind of going through the process and continuing doing what you're doing.
The good thing is I known him for a while, and he's a big business dude, you know, so he understands the numbers and so on. So he said, like, I don't want to pay any more than $1,050,000 for this. And there's already 13 offers. It was listed at 900, right? And they don't want to look at any comparables. So basically, he understands that within staying within that budget and trying to get something that he likes, that he can make money on, that might be the option. He was mentioning that option to me as well. So this house, I was just telling him that because it's not fully renovated and because it's not so spacious, it is a small house on the street. How appealing is it going to be to the buyer 2 years down the road, right? It's not going to have, it will have a factor because of the location, but not how much you would want to sit and wait and hold on to the property because it's not extravagant, right?
Right.
But at the same time, how much can you add to it? Because you can, there's not enough space. Everything that could have been done is already done. All you can do is rip out the cheaper material and put more expensive, but it doesn't really give you any value back, right? Because he was already thinking of renovating things and those kind of things, putting like 50, 60, 100,000 into it. I just showed him that if you put 50, 60,000 into this, how much is it going to give you back? How much do you think? And he was looking at it and he's like, no, the walls are opened up as much as it's possible and so on, right? So
Right. Yeah, no, well, it sounds like you did the right thing. It sounds like if that's his goal to get that return on investment through renovations, I mean, we can't really predict where the market's going to be. Maybe even if he just holds on to the property, you know, a year or two from now, the market could be better and he'll make money regardless. But of course, we can only do what he can afford and where he's comfortable with motivation. So sounds like you're doing the right thing.
yeah, I seen one 65 Clemens. They bought it March of last year for 826. They put maybe 150, 200,000 into it. Yesterday or day before